when Brittany asked me to come, we talked a little bit about my story as far as how I progressed along and become an entrepreneur. And quite honestly, when I went to school, I didn't even know if entrepreneurship was a part of the vocabulary. It certainly wasn't a part of my vocabulary, and I don't think it was a part of any of my close friends' vocabulary. When we went to school, it was basically, hey, let's go get a vocation. I mean, let's go find something to do. It wasn't about we're going to get a well-rounded education, and then think about some graduate school, and then we'll talk to some VCs and some people to get some money together, start a business. That was crazy talk. I mean, we were just trying to get a nice job to go along and find something to do, and certainly in my family, that's the way it was. Now, I grew up in Oklahoma City, went to Putnam City High School, so I was the original, so I was a pirate back in the day. And this is sort of the big circular aspect of my life right here. So I thought that the reason that I would go through this is because you can sort of get a feel for my experience, and hopefully you can not make all the same exact mistakes that I made, because I've made plenty over my lifetime, and especially when it comes to business, as you'll see in a few minutes. Still trying to get used to my body focus. Yeah, so anyway, went to OSU from right out of high school, majored in chemical engineering with a pre-med option. I thought I wanted to go to medical school, but didn't want to be a biologist or a microbiologist because I didn't really know what those people did. And I loved math and science, so that was easy. Went to OSU. Then after my junior year, was involved in a big explosion, which we'll call, put a big box around that and call it adversity, which is everybody has adversity in their life. There's no doubt about that. Some greater than others. This one was a really big one for me, obviously. It was my 21st birthday. I was dating a hot chick at that time. Right, have the world by the short hairs really in my mind. And so it all really came tumbling down at that point. But I really didn't understand what had happened. I knew I'd had a big injury, been in a big fire, in the hospital. People were gathered around. I mean, there was hundreds of people at the hospital, so I knew it was serious because people would gather around just for a broken toe like that. So they told me during that hospitalization, about 3 weeks in, and there were 4 of us, by the way, 4 kids that were early college age, involved in the explosion, and two guys ended up dying about 3 weeks into this deal. So 3 weeks into it, I'm thinking, hey, these guys are dying, that's pretty serious. And they said, well, I think you're doing fine, but you got to come to the realization that you may not be playing basketball anymore, you may not be water skiing. It's going to be hard just to do the activities of daily living. And I said, you don't even know who you're talking to, man. I've had knee operations, and I bounced back really fast. But what the problem was really not that they didn't know what they were talking about. I had no idea what I was into because just from lack of education and ill-preparedness, not based on any other reason other than I was just young, didn't know any different, that burn injuries are really pretty much the most severe injury that you can encounter, big burns anyway. So, and I would find that out later on in medical school on down the road. So what I didn't realize was that it wasn't just about getting out of the hospital, which basically once you have knee surgery out of the hospital, it's a little rehab, you're good to go. Well, it wasn't like that at all. So it was about a year and a half of pretty intense physical therapy, skin grafts, etc. So I was out of school for that whole year and a half. Well, I was going through that, and roughly had about 30 operations. Most of those were in the first 2 months of my hospitalization, but then about 10 afterwards, and even up until the second year of my medical school, I was still having reconstructive operations. So it was a big deal, to be sure. But some of the things I found out were very important as I went on down the road, and really for me to get over that, it was not just the physical part, but it was also the psychosocial sort of injury that I had, because, in my mind, I was pretty much a big man on campus, and now I was totally deformed up and, didn't look the same at all. So one of the things, and really I sort of tried to break this down a little bit, so 3 things that really made a difference in me overcoming this adversity. was number one, for me to realize that my worst problem was never going to be anybody else's list of top 10 worst problems. So, as far as I was concerned, it was a terrible ordeal, but trying to get people to realize that it was their worst problem was a fool's game. So, no one really thought it was in their top 10 worst problems. So, once I got over that, I could make the next jump, and that was really that if you let something get you down, it will. If you let the possibility of something taking you down, you definitely give it the opportunity to do that. So really, you just got to dig down deep and say, listen, you're not taking me down. So I think that was really important. And then the other thing was that our actions reflect right back to us through people. So as long as I'm comfortable, everybody else seems to be comfortable. When I feel uncomfortable around people, they feel really uncomfortable around me, and I can, you can sense that back in the subconscious or sometimes even a conscious way. One story in outside of the Greg Walton story to illustrate that is when I was in high school, I grew up in the city, like we said, but my grandparents lived in the country. They had horses, so we grew up sort of riding horses during the summertime, breaks, etc., etc. So I knew a little bit about horses, but I was dating this girl in high school and took her out to my grandparents with the fam, and we rode the horse. Well, she got on this horse. We gave her sort of the old horse because she was really, truly a city 5-year-old. She really had never been on a horse. Well, the horse threw her right off. I mean, it was about 10 minutes, chunked her right in the ground. And this girl is athletic. She's played basketball, very intelligent. It's not like she was a wimpy chick. So she's a gamer, so she gets right back on. Goes right back on. So I said, well, listen, maybe I better get on this horse and then you ride this horse, because it was acting fine, the horse I was on. So I got on another horse, it acted fine. She got on the horse I was on, threw her in about 10 minutes. So I think the horses, just like people, can know if you're confident about what you're talking about, where you're going, your actions, and that sort of thing. So I think those things get reflected right back to you. So we got to overcome the adversity, and then got to medical school. Went to medical school, got into medical school, really without going back to OSU, although I did go back in the spring of that second year, sort of to get my, my beer drinking liver made up and that sort of thing, so I could attend medical school, which was always important. So went to medical school, 4 years of medical school, got out of there, and went to do my general surgery in Birmingham, Alabama, a place where I knew nobody. That was really a big, proud moment from my explosion and my psychosocial development after this explosion to say, hey, I'm going to this town where I know absolutely nobody. And so it turned out to be spectacular. It sort of really solidified my feeling that, I had overcome this adversity. But one of the things I want to show is from this little box here, in this boxed up time, is about 15 years. So in that 15 years of post-high school education, I had one semester's course of any sort of business whatsoever class, and it was a personal finance class right here at the Oklahoma State University. And quite honestly, it was a joke of a class. We learned how to balance checkbook, which I actually did, believe it or not. And we didn't learn anything about double entry accounting. We didn't learn anything about reading the balance sheet or income statement. I mean, we learned nothing in there. But that was my whole business education. So got all this education, and there's the 10,000 hour rule. You guys have probably heard. If you want to be really good at something, then you need to spend about 10,000 hours practicing on it. So I went back and calculated out during my residency, which was about 5 years, and I did a fellowship in there, so 6 years, and that was about 5,000 hours, just under 5,000 hours a year. So I got way more than about 25,000, 30,000 hours in there. So I felt really that I was a pretty good, highly educated to go out and operate on people. So I looked around, did all my research, packed up my personal finance degree, my personal finance class, my one semester personal finance class, and looked around and ended up going into business with a guy who had graduated in our same surgery program about 3 years ahead of us in Atlanta, Georgia. We moved over to Atlanta. We got there, and I had no idea. My business plan was to hang out my diploma, and sort of, if you build it, they will show up, sort of a deal. Well, as it turns out, they didn't really show up. So that's a bad deal. So I'd been there about 6 months, and I'd done several operations here and there, here and there, and there. But it really got me down when in December, I'd been there 6 months, and I did one operation, one true operation in that month of December, that first year I was out. So that really sort of hurt my feelings, for sure. Then I started, second thinking about what the heck I was doing in Atlanta. So some of the things I learned there are, hey, your partner is a big part of your life. So you need to choose wisely. Choose your partner wisely. And the partner I chose was a great guy, very nice, very friendly, would have never stolen anything, but he didn't have the same zeal for growing a business as I did. I mean, he was fine just to sell his car, get a cheaper car, whatever it took, eat hot dogs at night, which was not my mindset. When you break up from a business, it's just as miserable, or maybe even more, than going through a divorce, I suspect. Not that I've ever been through a divorce, but I've definitely been through a breakup with a partner. And there's a lot of emotional, not to mention financial, misery. You just don't wrap up a business in a period of a month, or you don't go to court and wrap it up and that's it. You still have income coming in that you have to deal with, patients still calling about this and that and this and that. So the other thing I found out is that we're all salesmen. You've got to be a salesperson. I went into medicine specifically for the reason I didn't want to be a salesperson. I didn't want to be a CEO of a company. I didn't want to be a salesperson. I wanted to be the quintessential, used car salesman. So I went to medical school because I wanted to have expertise, and people came to me because they were dying to come to see me. Literally or figuratively, whichever way you think. But as it turns out, we're all salesmen. We are all salesmen. Even if you're not selling used cars, you are a salesman. We all sell ourselves every day, and that's what you're selling is yourself. Because within relative reason of quality of service or product, what you sell is yourself. And what people buy is you. They're not buying the product, they're buying you. If they trust you, that you're doing the right thing for them, they're going to buy from you. So I think that's really important to get in your mind, is that we're all salesmen. You can't get away from being a salesperson. Even if you're a middle manager in some huge company, you're still a salesperson to your superiors, and you're still a salesperson or manager to the people underneath you. So you're always going to be having to sell. And then the other thing was, hey, we got to look at the market. Well, I thought I'd look at the market. Hey, there's 4 million people in Atlanta proper. How could I go wrong, right? I mean, I'm a general surgeon. It takes about 10,000 people, supposedly, to keep one general surgeon busy. So I'm thinking, 4 million, I mean, how many surgeons can there be? Well, it turns out there's a whole bunch of surgeons over there in Atlanta. There's a whole bunch of doctors over there in Atlanta. And not only is there a whole bunch of people, but there's a whole bunch of doctors. And not only that, but even back then, and this was back in 1995 to 97 when we were there was a lot of subspecialization going on. So general surgeons, really there was very few of those. There were breast surgeons, there was endocrine surgeons, there was vascular surgeons, there was pancreaticobiliary surgeons. And so really, you sort of, as a general surgeon, you were getting combed down into being, an on-call trauma emergency room doctor. And we still did some breast surgery, although more and more there was getting to be more and more breast surgery centers and that sort of thing. So really the market was not so great as we turned back there. Not only in the opportunity, that is the number of people per surgeon, but also in just to try to be a general surgeon was not going to work out very well. So unfortunately, it took me about 2 years to get that figured out. But after about 1.5 years, we had sort of gotten figured out that this wasn't really going to work out. Not just financially, but I figured out that after 2 years, if I didn't start doing the things that I learned in residency, then I was not going to be able to do those in real life. I was going to have to go back and get trained again. But the other thing that's important when you're thinking about a business plan is how are you going to get paid? Where does the money stream come from? So you would think that, at least me, I would say, hey, people come to see me and you operate on them, they pay you. Not so much. Because there's an insurance company stuck in there. There's a lot of paperwork to be done. You got to hire people up to take care of that. So there's a lot of business that goes into that outside of, hey, I'm taking great care of you, you're living through your operation, and we're curing your disease, and everything's hunky-dory. Then you got to get paid because you got employees to pay, you got house payment, and that sort of thing. Well, so when we got finished with Atlanta, we decided to move to Enid, America. Now, as you might know, Enid is not the same size of a community as Atlanta. In the range of 45,000 people in Garfield County, 40,000 of those in Enid, compared to 4 million or so in Atlanta proper. But I did get on board a little with the marketing. The market, sorry, assessing the market. I was a little bit better at that. So it turns out that there's 8 general surgeons there, but 5 of them are over 60, and 3 of them are over 68. So I'm thinking, hey, I'm a young surgeon. I'll come in here. My mindset was, we'll give this thing 3 to 5 years, and which in the retrospect scope was crazy. 3 to 5 years, I'd be totally broke if I didn't have income like I had in Atlanta. So, but that's what I thought anyway, because I was, immature in my business life, to be sure. Well, it turned out that they were in real need of some young surgical blood over in Enid, because we came there, and within 6 months, I was totally covered up. And not just busy, I mean busy day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night, which I love. When you're a surgeon, you don't really keep score by how much money you make. You keep score by how many cases you do. That's what you learn in residency. How many cases did you do? How many cases did you do this week? How many cases today? How many cases this month? And so you keep score against other surgeons with how many cases you did during the month. And so I was really building up a really big score from my colleagues. And of course, that was great because I had 2 years of basically sitting with my thumb in my butt doing nothing when I was in Atlanta. So I had all this makeup time to do, so averaging out, it was fine. Well, the decision to move to Enid was really pretty easy. I was unhappy with the practice that we were going on. The market seemed to not have much in the way of opportunity, and my skills were diminishing. I grew up in Oklahoma City, so it was really fairly easy with my wife. Is from Dallas area. She had family in Oklahoma, so it really made pretty good sense. And this time, I had 3 of my very good friends from medical school who could refer to me. And so it all turned out really good. So I was busy, which is all great. But then I had to learn a few things here in Enid, America as well. So we already talked about my business plan. It was pretty much the same. Came hanging out with my shingle, and if you build it, they will come. Well, this time they actually did show up. So that was great. Because I'd done a little bit better research, at least on the market. I got the partner thing figured out because I had none. 0 partners. That was handy. So I didn't have to push anything by anybody when I wanted to spend some money or hire new people, whatever. Salesmanship wasn't that big of a deal there because in a small town, you can't hide the quality of your care. So that's one of the things about in a big town like Oklahoma City or Tulsa, you can be not that great of a surgeon and no one will ever know because you take all your complications over to this hospital and do all your other work at this hospital and that sort of thing. So, but in Enid, too small to do that, so you can't hide. So once you get the idea that people get the idea that you have quality, other doctors, other people around the community, then you're pretty much good to go. So less salesmanship to do there. We talked about the market already. And then the payers. So I'd sort of gotten figured out from Atlanta that the consumer is not really in the payment loop. They have a small copay that they have to pay and that sort of thing, but really it's all about the insurance companies. So how it works is really that the idea is the insurance companies come to your community and they say, hey, why don't you sign up? By signing up, we promise we have all these covered lives, and we promise that you'll be on a panel, and we'll have a limited panel, so they can only come to a certain group. Well, as it turns out, they sign up everybody in the community, so there's no limit to the thing. change. So all they're doing is crunching down the price and really not allowing you to have any increased chance of having a business. So what I found out over the 8 years when working in Enid is I was really racking up the number of cases per month. You know, my currency when I compared with other surgeons was spectacular. But what I found out in those 8 years is the busier and the busier and busier you get doesn't mean you're making more and more and more money. In fact, it sort of was going the other way. So here I was working day and night, burning the candle at both ends, but my revenues were actually going down, and over time my expenses were going up. And so really my margin even looked worse than my revenues going down. So in the last 3 to 4 years, about half of my time in Enid, I got very interested in doing weight loss surgery. And I learned to do weight loss surgery back in my residency back in Birmingham. And so it seemed to be sort of at the crossroads of my expertise. That is, in residency, right when I started residency, laparoscopy was just coming out. So back in the early 90s, laparoscopy. And I'll never forget the older surgeons sitting around the coffee pot in the surgeon's lounge. As a man, we just went to the big meeting this last week, and you never believe what they're doing. They're taking the gallbladder out through 4 small incisions while they're watching what they're doing on the television. And all those guys, that's a passing fad. We'll never be doing that. That's technology looking for a place to land. That's just hokey, hokey, hokey. And of course, history shows that if you weren't taking gallbladders out laparoscopically, about 3 years after that, you just weren't taking gallbladders out. Because for the first time, really, in the history of medicine, the public, the general public, demanded a technology be brought forward. And probably through the internet, the widespread news, that sort of thing, people just said, hey, listen, let me think about this. I can get back to work in 3 days, or I can get back to doing whatever I want to do in about 6 weeks with a big old hickey on my side. Let me think about that. I'll take the 3 days. So really, really pushed for it. But anyway, all that's to say that I came around, I grew up right in that era. So laparoscopic weight loss surgery really seemed to be right in the crossroads of what I learned to do in my residency. And not that, but there was very few people who did it very well. So it seemed like a niche, if you will, for opportunities. So I started doing it, and it was awesome to be involved in the dramatic changes in these people's lives, going from significantly overweight with multiple disease problems going on, and to losing all this weight with decrease in their medications, increase in their quality of life, etc. So that was very, very exciting, not only for me, but it really energized everybody in our office. And that's right. Well, as it turns out, there were several limitations to the weight loss surgery in Enid, America. So it ends up being about 25% of my practice in the last couple of years I was there. But I really liked it, but we were limited. That is, the other surgeons in town were happy to help me, but didn't want to cover on weekends for the weight loss surgery patients. So basically it meant that I couldn't get out of town ever. And trying to get a good weight loss surgeon to move anywhere is tough. Trying to get them to move to Enid, America is pretty much impossible. So the obvious place to look was Oklahoma City. Still have family here, a lot bigger town. There wasn't many people doing weight loss surgery, so I thought that'd be great. So anyway, looked over the market, looked at 3 different opportunities to come back to the city, and I chose one who had a big, grandiose business plan. A surgery center company that was going into weight loss surgery hospitals. The CEO of the surgery center company and his wife both had weight loss surgery. They wanted to build weight loss surgery hospitals. They put down one in San Antonio. Their plans was to put down one in Oklahoma City, but the hospital came for sale. They bought it, turned it into a weight loss surgery hospital. They came up to us with a spectacular pro forma, and you guys know what pro formas are, right? Pro forma, that is basically a totally factitious piece of paper on the best idea of what's going to happen in the business. That makes no sense whatsoever. Probably, at least I can figure this out in retrospectoscope. And I was naive, but not so naive that I would believe everything on a pro forma. But the way they presented to us, even if we were to do about 1/4 of what they said that we would be doing, it would still be a spectacular deal. from a monetary standpoint, and I would be doing something that I love. So we ended up making the jump. So it was really, I think one of the things about making a big jump like that is you have to be not afraid of what you're giving up. And so I think that's a real important thing, because staying still is not status quo. I mean, you're not doing a status quo if you're standing still, because it's always changing. Everything changes always. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind too. Well, so I sort of found a niche that I really liked. People weren't very good at it. They were doing it at that point. The market was spectacularly open, but unfortunately my market analysis again failed us to some extent. While the market was totally open, there was there was a few people in town doing it not very well. We came to town, we thought, man, we're going to do it well, everybody's going to live, we're going to be great, people are going to line up at our door. But it ended up that there's a lot of poison in the water from weight loss surgery from the guys who were doing it earlier than us. So I think there's still, in my market analysis, I was still not exactly right on that. So back to being more of a salesman now. So I got to be more of a salesman, because the market is just not beating the path to my door at this point. So I got to go out. And this time, it's really overcoming the negative ideals about weight loss surgery. And then providing value, of course, more than the other guy. Providing value more than the other guy. And figure out who your customers really are. So, are my customers referring doctors? Well, yeah, but they weren't sending people to us. So our customers were actually our patients, and they were sending us. Most of our new patients were actually coming from old patients, if you will. So providing value so that people would refer to their friends. And then you got to figure out who are the players and what their interests are, because when it came to Foundation or the Surgery Center group, it ends up that while the CEO was very excited about these weight loss surgery hospitals, the rest of the company was really still a surgery center company. And there's a lot of differences between regulations, etc., between hospitals and surgery centers. So while the CEO was willing to lay down tons of money to get this thing rolling, there was not much support back behind, and it ended up failing. So we ended up having a chance to buy into the hospital and become owners of our own practice, which was really a little scary, but it's turned out to be spectacular. So that's where we get to be entrepreneurs, because not only do I have a medical practice where I operate on people, collect revenues from that standpoint, but because we do weight loss surgery, it's a long-term project, we have dietitians that provide us with some revenue, exercise physiologists, testing that we do, exercise testing, performance testing, fat burning testing, etc. We do laboratory in our office, etc. So really for the first time, just in the last 2 years, really, a year and a half maybe, have we become true entrepreneurs. We think about what we're going to do to improve customer experience, to improve our revenue stream so we can hire new people, etc. So I'm getting way ahead of my talk. Oh, yep, so lessons learned overall. So I already said this one really. Everything changes always. Everything changes always. You cannot sit on your laurels. And I think that in my own life, this has been illustrated to me over and over and over. First, when here I am, a junior in college, and I think I got the world by the shorties, like I said, when absolutely came crushing down. But every time in my life where I get to thinking, hey, I got the world by the tiger by the tail. I'm on top of my game. I can do these operations without any complication whatsoever. Whatever it is, sure enough, humility is right around the corner. So I think it's always going to be humility. There's always going to be setbacks. There's always going to be adversity. Always. So just remember that everything changes. And you got to make decisions despite incomplete data. That's the hardest thing that it is for me in a business standpoint, because we really, in medical school, you hammer over the data, hammer the data, so you know when's it right to take out a gallbladder, what are the indications, what are the complications, what do you do if you have complications? All that stuff is hammered out way before we get to operate on people. But unlike that, in business, you have to make decisions based on incomplete data, and that sucks, because it's hard. And you can see through my course that I've never had complete data, and I've always been wrong in things. But I think the key is that great entrepreneurs and good managers don't always make the right decision, but they always make the decisions they make right. So I think that's the key. There will be adversity. We talked about that. Success really is, there's several laws of success which I think are important. There's whole volumes of information on what is success and that sort of thing, but I think several things always come back to me. And one thing is, especially if you're thinking about starting your own business or starting out on your own, what you want wants you. What you want to do wants to be done by you. The business you want to create wants to be created by you. It's just that it's not going to come to you if you don't go to it. If you walk to it, it'll move slowly towards you. If you run towards it, it'll run quickly towards you. So I think the key is the more pressure you put towards it, the closer it's going to get to you. And unfortunately, there's no substitute for hard work. But if you set down a goal, then what you have the ability to do is make sure that you're not just working efficiently. So you can work really hard and get lots of stuff done, but it's just not getting the important stuff done. And then you can be effective. So efficiency, lots of work, lots of things getting done. Effective, though, is really getting the right work done. There's always time to get the most important things done. You just got to put them on the top of your list to get done every day. And the other thing is, don't give up, because it's, the wars are won by not those people who believe the most, they're the ones who believe the longest. And then it's all about experience. Learn, do, learn, do, learn. It's a continuous education. And while I know you guys think that you're getting so much education here, which you are, but there's so much more to learn. And there's no way to learn it without actually getting out there and going to the college of hard knocks, which I've been through. So now I'm 48, 15 years, and then another 7 or 8 that I've been going to the school of hard knocks. So really, I sort of cut off there. I've got some other things we can yap about, but I want to give time for questions. So I'm really open to any sort of question. You got business, medical, weight loss surgery, explosions, big burns, whatever, and we can talk about that, or I can proceed on with all kinds of other stuff. I can pontificate for